Okay, now we're going to move on from the create phase into the deliver phase. Okay, so what we're going to concentrate on is the Mavis stick, more or less the communication device for her and her family to have more correspondence between both of them. The first thing that I brought into this here was, I suppose we wanted something that was going to take this from a stick that Mavis didn't like to something that was a very useful tool for her. So first of all, if we look at the actual top of it, it has to be comfortable in Mavis's hand. It needs to still work as a walking stick, obviously, but everything else within this has to improve Mavis's life, I suppose. So the top initially, I've looked at a few different shapes that could fit Mavis's hand. The next thing I wanted to look at was the camera at the top of the stick. Also, we've got microphones and speakers on it as well, so that the family can hear and see Mavis, and she can hear and see them as well. I'll talk about how she sees them in a second. But also, the material that this walking stick is made from, at the minute, it's a hard, durable rubber. So more or less what I'm looking at is something that's going to be able to keep the hot liquid like the tea inside, and it's not going to interfere with the technology that's happening within the stick as well. If we move on to the bottom of the stick, as I said, this has to function as a walking stick as well, so it needs to be able to lean on, it needs to be able to be durable at the bottom. But when you twist off this bottom section here, that reveals the projector. So when this, I'll show you another sheet in a second that shows how this actually works. But what we want to do is allow Mavis to be able to sit down wherever she wants, project onto a wall, be able to see her family be able to see her, almost like a laptop and a Skype conversation, but a more comfortable scenario for Mavis. The last thing I wanted to look at in this here was, what is the point of doing these drawings? Initially, I suppose, is to get feedback from Mavis, and also get feedback from your teacher, for example, the other people within your class. But we want to get to a phase where we can look at this as a potential prototype. Now, once you get to that phase, you can start looking at manufacturing. What's this thing going to cost? Is there anything like what you might have heard of called intellectual property? So is there part of this that can be registered as intellectual property to you, so makes it your idea? I'll give you a little look here at the potential of what this could look like on a desk or on a table for Mavis to use. So ideally this needs to be telescopic. So this walking stick needs to go from that length right down to probably about this size here. The camera, initially, I suppose when you do this here, it starts to become obvious where the problems might be. So the camera or the top of the walking stick needs to be able to swivel so that it can go up to Mavis's viewpoint. The speakers as well should be facing up the way so that Mavis can be heard and she can hear her family speaking. The center point where her cup of tea is still in there, so that needs to be, that'll probably tilt and move, so that needs to be a closed area so that it doesn't interfere with what else is going on in the walking stick. And also then the projector at the end, that possibly needs to tilt up so that it projects onto the wall so that Mavis is able to see her family as well. So there's a lot of different things that the further you move along this process, and once you get into these more detailed design drawings, then it becomes clear where the problems might be. And that'll become even more evident when you get to prototype stage, when you start to make this and see how it actually works.